Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome today to an unboxing and initial impression style video on a brand new Seiko that looks a lot like an old Seiko. I'm getting a strong sense of deja vu here. In fact, this is the third week out of 4 weeks that I've looked at a brand new Seiko that looked a lot like an old Seiko. Have Seiko actually designed any new models in the last 12 months? They're getting a bit lazy, especially I think with this one, as you'll see. Anyway, it's fine to be a bit lazy, I suppose, as long as what you're releasing is still good. As long as the old watches were good, and as long as the new watches were good. And you know what? The old watch here was one of their very best. The SNZH 53, 55, 57, depending on colour. Also known as the 55 Fathoms, because it was a Seiko 5 that bore a passing resemblance to the famous Blancpain. Well, as is the way these days, Seiko discontinued that one a few years ago and have now brought it back with a couple of mild upgrades and a price hike. You smell that? That, my friends, is the sweet scent of capitalism. Let's flip the camera and peel off some stickers. Well, if this is an all too familiar story now of Seiko discontinuing and then re-releasing a new watch with marginal upgrades and a price hike, then this is certainly a familiar opening paragraph to that story, isn't it? We've all seen this white box many, many times before. Before I even take the lid off though, let's talk price. And again, this is all very familiar. The pricing of this SNZH 99K1 is identical to the pricing of the SNK reissue that I looked at last month. So $625 Aussie dollars retail. However, already it's a brand new model. I paid $399 for this one, so it is being discounted by over a third. I talked about capitalism earlier on. Certainly Adam Smith's invisible hand, people will only pay what they think a product is worth, is at work here. People at the moment think this is not worth the full RRP, but probably about 2/3 of the RRP. Now that still works out at $260 US or thereabouts at the current exchange rates. That's still about twice the price of the old watch. Yeah, okay, let's see if there's enough in here to justify those price hikes. Well, I gotta say, the old watch was a bit of a looker, and the new watch is also a bit of a looker. And that's it a bit closer in. It certainly has a familiar face, does it not? The dial, the hands, the bezel, all pretty much one for one of the old SNZH. The case though, not so much, although I'm sure that most of you are already quite familiar with the case. More on that later. Movement ticking away here just out the box, which is always nice to see. Always nice to see the second hand springing into life. How do we feel about black and gold these days? I remember about 5 years ago, every second watch that I bought or was sent for review was this kind of black and gilt retro look. Nowadays though, not so much. Still lovely looking, but I don't think people are quite as into this retro look as they were a few years ago. Anyway, as I said, model reference here is the SRPK 99K1 4R36 automatic movement by Seiko, and it looks like you and I have some stickers to peel. Almost done, one little case back sticker remaining, but we'll deal with that in just a minute or two. For now, let's get it sized and let's get it set. Alright, we're back, 7 minutes past 10 on Friday the 13th. Do you see what they have done here then? They've taken the look of the SNZH, the dial, the hands, the indices, the bezel insert, they've even taken the dome crystal, and they've done a reasonable job of copy and pasting the bracelet over as well. But they've put it all into a 5KX case. You know, that is the 5KX case with the crown down there at the 4 o'clock. The whole point of the SNZH, the 55 Fathoms, was that the case looked like the 50 Fathoms case, which has the crown at 3. This one doesn't. Seiko are just getting lazy. I don't understand really why they did this. If they're going to reissue this one, great. It's a good looking watch. It was definitely one of their affordable classics. Why didn't they just give us a new case to go with it? They managed that with the old 55th anniversary reissue that I looked at a couple of weeks ago. Why couldn't they have gone the extra mile and given this one its own dedicated case? So I guess then one's perspective on this watch will come down to whether or not you remember the original, whether or not you own the original, for example. If you don't, if you've only got into watch collecting over the last 5 years, this is great. This is definitely one of the best Seiko 5s using this case that I've seen. It looks fantastic, and at $399 Aussie, it's probably fairly priced for a big brand Japanese watch. However, if you remember the original, if you own the original, it's not going to look so sweet, is it? Because it was half the price of this one and was in a case more suitable for the overall look. Anyway, let's do dimensions and specifications. Those being 42.2mm in diameter, 14.4mm thick with a 46mm lug-to-lug, drilled lugs today as noted. 22mm between the lugs, there's a bit of a taper down to 19.5, back up to 21.5 at the clasp. As sized for me, 7-inch wrist, 154 grams. 100 meters of water resistance from a push-pull crown, as is standard for all of these 5KX cases. That is domed mineral crystal though, as opposed to flat, which is the standard for all the rest of these 5KX cases. And as discussed, it's a Seiko 4R36 movement. And there she is in all her glory, along with hollow end links in all their glory. Couple of little stickers here. There's the Movement Malaysia cased in China sticker, and underneath that one there is the case back protection sticker. 4R36 day-date complication movement, arguably all the movement you actually need in a watch at this or any other price. They all do pretty much the same job at the end of the day, don't they? 24 jewel, hacking and hand winding, rugged, robust, reliable, but not particularly accurate. Nice to see it nonetheless. Case is typical Seiko. High polished sides, very nice and smooth to the touch, also nice and smooth on wrist, along with that high polished case back. There is some circular brushing to those upper lug surfaces though, and we do have a guarded, chunky, that's a 6.5mm crown down at the 4 o'clock. They have carried this bezel over from the previous model, or at least the look of the bezel over from the previous model. 120 click unidirectional rotating dive time. Everything lines up on this one, as it should though, which is always a bit of a relief to see at a Seiko at the price. And the bezel insert is hard legs. Now, the originals, the 50 Fathoms anyway, had Bakelite bezels. This has a similar look. It's got that kind of glossy finish look, but they've just used a piece of mineral crystal in there as well as the dial covering. And the bracelet, do you know what? The bracelet is not too bad. It's typically cheap and rattly feeling, as is the way with an entry-level Seiko, but it looks alright, doesn't it? Now, these are just single-piece links masquerading as something more complicated and luxurious thanks to a mixture of pressing and polishing. But we do have female end links, so 46mm lug to lug with female end links. I reckon you can get away with this one down to a 6.25 inch wrist, no problem at all. And a little bit of high polish there on those center sections does add bling. The clasp though, standard Seiko, you've seen these dozens of times I'm sure. Stamped fold over, double security pusher, but it's pressed upper, pressed lower, full holes of micro adjust, no diver's extension or anything like that, which probably would have been a little bit unnecessary on a watch like this. Let's have a quick look at the dial and hands then before I get this one on wrist, and I will chuck in a bit of extra bonus macro footage here, even though this is only an unboxing and initial impression style video. Now, the dial and hands of the old SNZH was one of its strong suits, and it's exactly the same for this new model because the dial and hands are pretty much exactly the same on this new model. It doesn't really look like an entry-level Seiko, does it? The black and gold colour scheme, I think, is a big factor in that, but also we have an applied Seiko logo, we have applied indices, we have that gilt frame around the colour match day-date complication, all of which adds up to a watch that looks classier than the price tag would suggest it would. Plus they have removed text from the dial. Often the bane of a cheap watch is an overemphasis on dial text. They're trying to throw as many specifications on there as possible, whereas really, if you want to make your cheap watch look expensive, you take text off of the dial, and that's what Seiko have done with this one. Overall, it looks good, it's well proportioned, it's nicely legible, it's handsome, it's just generally a good looking watch. Now, I'll also give you a lume video as a bit of a bonus today as well. Lumi Bright, of course, and it follows exactly the same patterning as the old SNZH, so you have lume plots on the inside of those indices. as well as on the big hour and minute hand and that little arrowhead tip on the second hand. Now, the fact that they have chosen to put lume on the inside of those indices makes the watch look much smaller than it actually is after dark. It's the same effect as on the Seiko Sarb and various others. You're just going to have to get used to it. Lumi Bright though, always a solid 7 out of 10. When I turn the speed up, you can see it does fade, but not alarmingly. Not bad for an affordable Japanese big brand dive style watch. That's it on my 7-inch Res. Seiko know exactly what they're doing with these watches now. They have made so bloody many of them. They know how to make them comfortable and they know how to make them fit well. Now, I wouldn't normally go for 22mm lug width myself, I prefer 20. However, 42.5mm diameter, it kind of suits the overall look. And boy, does that watch look good. Black and gilt may be slightly less in favour and in vogue in 2024 than it was back in 2018, but I still think it looks pretty awesome. I always thought it was the best looking version of the old watch, and I think it is the best looking version of the new watch as well. And as discussed, legibility is actually okay. You do get some distortion from that domed hardlight, something you don't normally get with flat crystal, but the hands are big and bold and they really carry the legibility on this one. Moans and niggles. Well, the usual Seiko complaints apply for their watches at this price point. That is, mineral crystal hardlights isn't particularly hard. I have scratched several over the years. Other brands manage sapphire at this price. Seiko arguably should manage sapphire at this price as well. And the bracelet, yeah, cheap, rattly, hollow end links, push pins, and a pressed upper, pressed lower clasp. It wears comfortably, but yeah, it does feel a bit cheap in hand. I guess then the biggest complaint about this one is going to come down to that perspective. If you're new to the hobby, if you're new to watches and looking at this one thinking it's drop dead gorgeous and well spec'd for the money, go for it. If you are, however, slightly longer in the tooth and perhaps own one of the old SNZHs, the movement upgrade is really the only thing happening here. The rest of it is on par with the old model. Stick with your old one. I replayed my old video review from 2018. It was $130. This one, even on discount, is still twice that. I reckon they'll settle in around the $350 Aussie dollar price point. For the market, the 2024 market, that's pretty decent, but I wish they had done a proper 3 o'clock crown case for this watch and made it more of a model of its own, rather than just doing a slightly lazy copy and paste of the old dial, hands and bracelet and sticking it in a 5KX case. But hey, that's Seiko in 2024. Apparently, there's a new, in inverted commas, SKX coming out and a new, in inverted commas, Samurai coming out as well mid-year. I look forward to more of the same. So there you have it. Well done for making it all the way to the back end of the video. Why don't you watch that aforementioned review of this one's granddad, or check out the SNK reissue from a couple of weeks ago. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next one.